Hey y'all, Tim Bratz here. Welcome to the Legacy Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Rivers Pearce, who owns Parcel, which is a fractional CMO and digital marketing agency, specifically in the real estate space. A lot of residential real estate and scaling into the multifamily real estate and commercial real estate world too. So I'm excited to sit down with him and learn all things about what's working today in online marketing, digital marketing, and what he's seeing in different businesses when he comes in and audits those businesses on where the bottlenecks are on the marketing funnels for those different businesses. So let's go sit down with Rivers, and excited to learn some things. Rivers, welcome to the Legacy Podcast.
Thank you.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Hope you are.
Yeah, well, I know we got a chance to kind of wrap a little bit before we turn the camera on about a little bit about your business. I know you and Q know each other, and kind of sending some business back and forth because you guys are in similar complementary type of businesses in the marketing world. And so what I'd love to do is dive deep into a little bit about your entrepreneurial background, and then kind of what you guys are doing right now, and then I'd love for you talk about how you guys do audits on different businesses, specifically in the real estate space, and when you come in, what businesses are doing right, what they're doing wrong, what they could be doing better, and then how they can find somebody like you guys to come in and tighten it up and take it to another level. So let's talk, share a little bit about how you became an entrepreneur, right? It's an interesting journey that we all go through. Some people just fall into it, some people are forced into it, but what about your
I think
story?
I've somewhere between falling and forced. I'll give you the 25-year abridged version here. So for about 10 years post-college, I was a performing musician. So I was a guitar player, professional guitar player, touring all over the country. It was wonderful.
What kind of music?
Rock and roll, radio rock. We were trying to make it, but toured, professionally. It was great. Is that one of those things where, in the moment, you don't appreciate it as much as, you're trying to hit that thing, but now looking back, you're like, those are probably some of the best days of your life. It was so much fun, right? But it's 1 hour a day where it's great, and the rest of the time, it's like, the time you're on stage is awesome, most of the time. But when you're in, Oklahoma City on a Wednesday night, and there's you and the bar staff and the band, right, that's it, right? It can wear on you, but I learned a ton, and, I've played thousands of live music shows, and you don't think about how that translates potentially into the next part of your life. And so when I was about 29, I was like, I got to do something else. It's time to move on. I've done everything I could do here. So that was about 2004-ish, 2005. I had a philosophy degree and a lot of live shows under my belt, and I could bartend. What am I going to do when I grow up now, right? And I fell into digital marketing. And someone gave me a chance, taught me how to do Google AdWords, PPC at the time, and basic kind of early SEO. I got good at doing that. I fell in with working with some agencies, was doing e-com PPC work for companies like Office Depot and Apple. It was pretty cool. I fell into a really good group with a company called 360i based out of Atlanta. So I did that about 5 years, learned how to do lead gen and PPC, e-com really well, wanted to move back from Atlanta to Charleston and started looking for jobs here. And there's no tech scene really here then, 2009,
not at that time, right?
2010, it really wasn't. So I found this company that was looking for somebody to do their lead generation. And it ended up being a company called Boomtown, which is, if you're from here, Boomtown has been a big success story in the Charleston technology scene. They needed somebody to build and do their lead generation services. We took a chance. I was a 10th employee, so that's kind of like stepping into really taking that entrepreneurial journey. Yes, I was joining up with them, but we were in a room. It was startup 101 kind of thing.
Where's Boomtown now?
Well, Boomtown, we took that company. I spent about 10 years there. There was 10 of us when I joined. We had about 50 clients. When I left about 5 years ago, we had, 3,000-4,000 clients, several, I think 400 employees, had done some acquisitions. It was a success, kind of gold standard in the real estate prop tech space. Boomtown was acquired about 2 years ago, and so they've been folded into another company.
And they're essentially a CRM for a lot of brokers, right?
Yeah, we carved out our niche into the real estate teams world, which is a kind of a subset of brokerage. But yeah, so you think website, lead generation, CRM, marketing automation, technology platform. We also did lead generation for them. So that's where I came in. We would drive traffic into their website so that they had leads in their CRM, and the rest is history.
Buyer leads, seller leads.
Buyer leads, mostly
brokering.
buyer leads in that time, seller leads though for sure. And what we also found is that we were a B2B software company. That's what Boomtown is and was. But what we found is that we built education, training, community, masterminds around it, events, and we created a community around the product. And that's what we found kept people on the product more than sometimes the output. Like, it kept them using the product. And so what we found is that yes, we can be a B2B technology company, but most people thought of us as a place to grow their business, to learn. By the time we started doing masterminds in 2011, by 2018-19, we had a full, like 3,000 person conference that we would do every year called Unite, right? So we went from like a room at the DoubleTree over the years to like filling up the Gilliard Auditorium, right? So, I think, again, from what I know about you guys, that community aspect, the networking, the learning from each other, that's what makes, technology just a tool set. All those things around it, right, are what allow you to they have to go hand in hand.
Yep.
Right. And so, anyway, that's the long and short.
You created a personal interaction to something that was an inanimate technology, right?
Yeah.
Like, so all of a sudden it deepens the relationship as opposed to somebody just, hey, I'm going to go try to find the next big software that's out there. There's a community aspect, and you can't leave the community.
You can't, and the software doesn't do it by itself, right? I learned this business model, this marketing thing from this group. Here's how the technology supports that capability to execute on that business plan, or that scalable. We need to scale, so we need technology to help us do that, or whatever those things are. And I think that's where people find the most success is you can't think about doing business these days without technology.
Right.
This is the world we live in, right? So how do you effectively learn to use the right technology to do the things and execute on those goals? So
how has that changed over the past 15 years that you've been doing this, or 15, 20 years that you've been doing this in the digital marketing? Like, how have you seen things change? How have you seen things shift? That's been pretty eye-opening for you, right? Because the technology is changing so rapidly and so quickly that where are you seeing like the big opportunities today versus where they were maybe 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, so today obviously is all around AI, but so if we kind of strip that off for a second, what you see, the kind of arc of at least property technology is you went from everything's offline, but we've got software on our machines, spreadsheets, things like that. And if you think about something like the MLS, it used to be in books, then it goes into a walled garden on a computer that you can log into, and then it becomes like IDX, and now you've got Zillow and websites like Boomtown that could generate leads. But the arc went from one system to kind of rule them all that's on a desktop, and then we start getting cloud-based solutions, and then you start getting more modular-based solutions where you've got a CRM plus a call tracking thing plus an email platform plus maybe a transaction platform plus a lead gen thing. And you start getting these like point solutions. Then people started connecting those with APIs. And then what you get though is you get a real estate brokerage or a team that has 20 pieces of technology that they don't even know how to manage anymore, right? These people are salespeople. Yeah. They're not IT or tech professionals, right? So kind of what we're seeing now is back to how do we create more of a streamlined infrastructure of technology, either through one kind of system that has a lot of AI built into it, or stringing together tech and putting a layer of AI on top of it to manage all of the outputs and how things are what they call composability, how you're using the platforms. It's a lot more complex than it used to be. And so people come to us a lot for how do we manage this business now with all of these tech opportunities that we have. And even in the prop tech space, you've got thousands of vendors now. That a real estate broker shouldn't be the one that you're not going to be necessary. I'm not the expert in doing your core real estate business. I'm the expert on the tech side, right? And so the problem is a lot of these guys are independent contractors or they're entrepreneurs, and they have to run their businesses. They don't have time to be a tech expert.
Right.
Right. And so they often fall prey to just getting a shiny object,
Yep.
trying to think, oh, I'm going to push a button, it's going to work. That's not it. It facilitates.
So I mean, at what point, right, is too much or is a bunch of technology too much technology where then it hurts productivity, right? And how, as an entrepreneur, can somebody look at different platforms and figure out, is this a good fit for me or
great.
not a good fit?
All right, so that's a great segue. The first step, if we're ever working with somebody, and this is for anyone, is it's not about the technology. Like, put the technology aside. Like, let's talk about, what does your business do? What are your goals? How did you get from point A to point B, right?
As we dive into that, maybe explain real quick about what your business is, because you left Boomtown
so I left
5 years ago. Let's finish that, and then we'll come full circle.
So
because
nowadays I would call myself a consultant. My business partner, Jeff Corbett, and I have a company called Parcel. We do strategic consulting mostly for the residential space, but we also work with land brokerages, commercial brokerages, some mortgage companies, even investors, and we also work with the technology companies that sell things to that space, to help them navigate how to price things, product market, roadmaps, things like that. So the people would come to us that are either starting a new business, or they've maybe hit an inflection point where they're having trouble scaling or growth or digital transformation. And so what we'll do is come in and say, all right, well, you guys think you have all these ideas about tech. We're going to shelve all of that for now, and let's talk about your business. How did you get here? What are your goals? What does your operations look like? Let's look at the books. Let's get all the principals on the same page about what we're doing, because so we'll come in and do what most consultants would do. We get everybody in different rooms. We interview people. We get everybody back in the same room. Well, you said this, you said this, you said this. You guys are all partners here, but so a lot of it is that piece.
Clarity,
right?
man, yeah.
Let's all get on the same page about what we want. What are our goals? Let's be accountable and transparent to those. Then we can say, all right, well, it's pretty clear the reason we're not hitting X, Y, Z, or these are our issues, are because of either an operational issue, a business model change or something. Could be a technology infrastructure problem. A lot of times it is a part of that, right? It's, you want to do these things. Case in point, a lot of times people are like, well, we want to do AI. Okay, well, what does that mean to you? Well, I read some articles, I saw a video, a podcast, whatever. We'll go and say, well, you can't do AI because you don't even have a central place for all of your data. You've got 2 CRMs that half the people are using. You've got Whiteboards, you've got spreadsheets, We'll bring everything into one house, build a data infrastructure for them. Then we can layer in the things on top of it so that we can actually do AI or do sophisticated marketing. And it gets to a point there, it's like, they don't need to understand the nuts and bolts of some of that. We know what your goals are. Here's what we have to do to get to the point where we can actually execute against meeting those goals. Most of the time, it's an operational shift, a mindset shift, and a technology component to it.
No, I'm a real world example of that. We were talking offline about the software we've been developing. It's called Smart Management, and essentially, we had a CRM software, we had our QuickBooks accounting software, we had our property management software, Appfolio, which is what we were using. We had Google Docs and spreadsheets. We had our investor management stuff. We had our workflow management through Monday.com, and then there was a bunch of stuff written on the whiteboard. And one of our investors, who's a big software engineer, he was one of our bigger investors, had 7 figures with us, was sitting in on one of our weekly asset management calls. He's like, how the hell does anybody know what's happening? Because not everybody has access to all these things, and none of these things are talking to each other either. And so he came to me and said, hey, I want to build something that consolidates all of them with a bunch of intelligent automations, and then all of a sudden the AI stuff came out over the past few years, and so he's integrated a lot of that into just a fully robust, and this is something that we need to sit down outside of the podcast and talk about, having you guys come in and help us out with marketing this, because it is better than every one of the property management softwares out there, because it takes everything into one house, but it also automates all of it, where now people don't need, at least for it's property management software, so it's a little bit different than the brokerage side. From property management software, it automates everything, where now you don't need the staff that you thought you had before, or you need reduced staff, which saves you $60,000, $100,000, $300,000 a year in staff salaries, which goes to the bottom line, which then increases the enterprise value of the property.
Yep.
And so it's a dramatic thing, and it provides complete clarity and transparency in the operations, which has been a big issue over the past 2 years.
Absolutely.
Holding rental properties.
And I think some of the other things to think about is, like you said, if you've got whiteboards and you've got this thing that what we see a lot, I'll take it back just a second, is somebody starts doing a business, whether it's investing or a single agent in real estate, similar kind of path. They get to the point where they need an assistant, all right? They can't scale themselves. They start to build a team. They're using this tech, and now they're using this tech, and now they're using this tech, and they've band-aided things together along the way, which is fine. But you hit a point where it's like, oh man, we can't scale anymore, or how do you do this, or the dreaded, who knows how to run this whole thing? It's like, oh, Susie, what happens if Susie gets hit by a bus, right? Like those are the things that we'll come in and say, we're going to standardize all of this. We're going to document all of this, and then we're going to build a system to scale it, right? That's what a lot of people,
because otherwise, man, you got 2 people on staff just to manage the tech side of things versus just having a better tech setup.
Yeah, or even just the operational workflows because there's so much tech, right? So
exactly.
Or it's like we copy this from this spreadsheet and we put it in this spreadsheet, which then populates that. I'm like, but what if they copy the wrong thing or they
miss
fat
a cell,
finger, like, and the whole formula breaks everything downstream. So that's what we were like. You've got a brittle infrastructure. Let's tighten those things up a little bit, right?
Oh, well, I mean, it's interesting because you're talking that you guys own a digital marketing agency. You guys are CMOs, and so you think it's all from the marketing standpoint, but there's a lot of operational things. It's actually heavier on the operations. It just happens to be on the marketing operations.
The marketing stuff is great and fun if you can ever get to the point where you can do the marketing, right?
Yep.
Most of the stuff we do, I talk about this all the time, is I'm really passionate about the unsexy stuff that is all happening behind the scenes, that's powering the marketing org or the operational infrastructure for it. It's like the classic, the iceberg, right? The tip of the iceberg and everything real is happening on here, or the swan, kicking his feet under the water. It looks great over here. This campaign is kicking ass, but like, what it took to get to that point. Everybody sees the tip of the iceberg, right? That's what they want. I want the commercial that does that. I want that performance that I read about of this campaign. It's like, all right, well, that took 6 months to build creative, tech, tracking, analytics, like to get to the starting line sometimes, right? And then it's about scaling it and repeating it and whatnot. So I think that's the kind of the misperception out there, is that marketing is all the fun, glamorous stuff, right? But I mean, if you talk to Q, think about what goes into making all of one Instagram post look great.
Yep.
It's a lot.
Yep. And there's a lot of hands in the process, and a lot of things that get moved around. And if you don't have that dialed in and that organized, nothing else.
And a plan
hits.
Right? If you go, we'll work with companies, and they're like, I'm like, listen, doing content on a regular basis is not rocket science. It's the doing of it. Right, so you build a 12-week content calendar.
Intentionality
We've got the technology built for you to do it and scale it. You guys have to execute every week, and you can do that by getting in front of it. But if you're coming in every Monday and like, what am I going to post tomorrow? You're already going to fail. Right? You got to be ahead of all of that kind of stuff.
So, with your business right now, who's like your avatar client?
I would say, especially right now, in light of what's happening with the NAR settlement and how that's kind of shaken up the residential world, right now it would be around larger real estate brokerages that need to take into account the shifting landscape around commission handling and how that's impacting margins and agents and buyers specifically. And then when you've got AI happening at the same time, there's just a fundamental shift. So we're focused on brokerages that are looking to shift their business, modernize some things a bit. Large real estate teams also are similar to a brokerage, but a little bit different. And then working with the companies that are selling products to them.
Yep.
Right? How do we match them with the right companies and help them, have their strategies in place for the kind of avatars they're looking for.
I love it.
We're also interested in the commercial space quite a bit right now. There's a lot of opportunity there that I think is more aligned with digital transformation versus, so they're a little bit behind residential from what we're seeing, and land.
Explain that. What do you mean digital transformation?
From a technology perspective,
for sure.
Residential had to shift about 10 years ago, which is why companies like Boomtown were so successful. Commercial has not really had to make the changes,
slow, man.
But is starting. They want to leverage AI. They want to leverage big data in a way. In order to do that, you have to have infrastructure that captures data and makes it usable. And so when we say digital transformation, we're getting people out of notebooks and whiteboards and into CRM and email marketing and data warehousing and analytics, so we can start to track and actually see kind of that next level of opportunities and accountability.
We were talking before about the email marketing, well, working your existing database of past inquiries, past clients, all those kinds of things. And I think this is a big missed mark for a lot of businesses. Is there, and I understand, like I've taught my team, I was like, listen, go and turn over more rocks and just like go out there and just bring more people in. You could sell somebody, but you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. If they're not ready right now, let's go find somebody new and just keep it moving. But one thing we haven't done is then go back to all those leads, or it wasn't the right time right then, and then rework that. Maybe we'll put them into a database of emails and stuff. And we've really started doing that, and we're seeing amazing results because we went back and it was just the right person but the wrong timing, And so talk a little bit about that of working the existing database, the past leads, and like what is a way that somebody who is in marketing mode and in sales mode and they're growing and they have this big database, like I didn't know what to do, but I always kept all the business cards, I always kept all the emails, I put it into an Excel spreadsheet. I didn't know what to do with it. And then I learned about email marketing, and it's as simple as, I started out doing a BCC on a Gmail email and sending and telling people, I'm looking to buy apartment buildings, send me everything that you got. And all of a sudden deal flow started coming, and all of a sudden investors started coming, and all of a sudden coaching clients started coming. Talk a little bit about that. What do you do when you go into an existing client's office and you're doing an audit with them and you take a look at their database? Like, what are some ideas that you could give them on how to monetize that?
I think I'll say don't overthink it, right? A lot of times people are like, I need to have all these complicated drips and all this. It's like if it's just taking your spreadsheet, getting into Gmail and BCCing 100 people, start there. Be yourself, just be authentic. At a certain point, much like anything, it scales to the point where that's not going to work anymore. So then you've got to get a CRM or whatnot. But the mindset shift is, you see this a lot in real estate, is I need to just keep getting more leads. Absolutely, you need to have fresh blood, turn over more rocks. Like, that's sales 101. Absolutely. But if that's the only thing you're focused on, then you get into what I call the lead generation rat race, where you've got the goal is generate lead, nurture lead, close deal, repeat that process as many times and as fast as possible. What happens is these people that you've done business with, the closed deal, they go into a database and they're not on your mind anymore. You're so focused on the top of the funnel that you leave all the real opportunity with the relationship you built in a database somewhere. The goal is shifting that balance into, now I've got 100 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people in a database somewhere. It's, yes, put them on a drip. Absolutely. Tell them about what you're doing, show them opportunities, whatever that you do, right? But also, like, what else can you do with them? You can take that audience, put it into Meta, into LinkedIn, and you're creating lookalike audiences. You're creating remarketing opportunities. So not only are you sending them the email, they're seeing your ad, and if they click something from the email, they're getting retargeted for something, right? And so then those signals go into another kind of system, whether most likely in your CRM, where if they're showing behavior that is indicative of what you want to sell them, somebody's picking up the phone then and making the call or sending the text, right? And so it's a more of a 360 surround sound, whatever you want to call it, kind of advertising and marketing component where, it's not just one channel like email or social or whatever it is. You have to have the comprehensive program, but again, it starts with the mindset of, yes, I need fresh blood. yes, I need to turn over rocks. That's part of this always. But the real money is coming from the people I've already done business with and already know, as they say, know, like, and trust. That they know, like, and
That's
trust.
the biggest hurdle to get past. Once you get past that hurdle, then it's like
the technology.
When I go and raise private money for my deals, I go first to my existing investors and everybody who's already invested with me. It's a lot less of a conversation because they've already seen that I've paid them back, paid them on time. Maybe I paid them late, but I communicated, right? Like all those different things. And so exactly, I've earned the trust. And so that, I think people are like, oh, I need to get more customers. Well, there's multiple ways to make more money, and it's not always by getting more customers. One is getting more customers. Another one is selling more stuff to your existing customers, and then another one is raising your prices on everybody, right? Like those are the three main ways
but
in order to generate more
customers
revenue.
at a lower margin may not make as much sense as higher margin off the customers you've already got, right? I mean, so
I
again,
agree
we
with that
work
too.
with people to say, let's break this all down, and then we can build infrastructure to track all of this and use technology to execute against campaigns and say, this is better, this is worse, do more of this, don't do that. The technology piece is just a tool set to execute on the business plan, right? And if you can create opportunities for insight, transparency, and accountability, the rest of it is pretty easy. You know where to put your money, your time, your energy, whatever those things are,
Yeah. So somebody who's listening to this and they think, man, that's a lot to absorb. That's a lot for me. I think as an entrepreneur, at least early on, I would always go to a conference or I'd listen to a website or listen to a podcast, and I'd watch this video and hear like, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I was always like, Tim's got to do this, Tim's got to do this, Tim's got to. And I'm like, it was a big mindset shift once I understood, the who to do the how, the who to do the what. Who could I hire to do? Tim doesn't have to do this. Tim has to find the person to then go and implement that. And for, let's say it's a small business owner, they don't have the marketing team built out. Like, there's fractional marketing companies like you guys.
That's what we do.
Right? Like Q and her team does the social media side of things for somebody who doesn't want to build out or hire somebody full time on the social media side of things.
And you shouldn't necessarily, especially in early stage.
So
like,
that was going to be my
hire
question.
me for 10 hours a month, and I'll help you hire your marketing coordinator. I'll help you make sure that you get the right CRM in place, or you're not alone, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg, but you're still doing most of the work with some guidance, right? But it's like, oh, you need a web developer? Great. I can help you with that. You need a PPC guy? No problem.
Let you screen them because you know the right questions to ask.
A lot of times
you know how to see through the
people
BS.
write the job description, right? Like, we'll work our way out of the job. That's the whole point, right? We're here to help you get where you need to be.
It's very similar to like property management. I tell people, hey, use third-party property. I do not like third-party property management. But it doesn't make sense to hire somebody and lose money unless third-party property management is doing such a bad job that it makes sense to hire that person. But for the first 30 to 50 units that you own in a rental portfolio, hire a third party, and then now the management fees that you're paying are $4 or $5 grand a month. Now it makes sense to then hire that in-house because you've grown enough. What would you say is like that? Maybe it's a revenue point, maybe it's what you have going on. Because I use a lot of agencies before I then built out my own internal marketing team. But we, at what point? I think you're right with, at the get-go, bring on a fractional officer for the first 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week to come in and then just kind of dissect, help organize some thoughts, organize some ideas. And then as business grows, as revenue grows, and you need to hire somebody, boom. A lot of times I think, you hire a marketing assistant. They then kind of report to almost like you, but do the day-to-day activities. You come in and consult.
You got it.
Is that kind of what the process would look like?
I don't think you can put like a number if you hit $1 million in revenue or whatever. It's going to be different for everybody, but
because different margins.
It's hitting that organic point where you're stretched too thin, or I don't know how to do this. And much like anything, if you don't know how to drive a car and you've never driven a car before, you got to get somebody to teach you how to do it, right?
But figuring out where it's the most efficient timing, I guess, is my thought of like, probably when you're hitting some sort of a bottleneck.
When you're hitting a bottleneck.
And revenue is plateaued.
Or you want to scale in a way that you're willing to pay some extra money to do it. But I would say that having fractional from day one is you should have somebody in your corner, even just as an advisor, right? And I think at a certain point, it's also looking in the mirror and saying, absolutely having somebody at the next phase as a marketing assistant, a coordinator that understands, enough broad, about your business and how to at least monitor data and KPIs. And but at a certain point, you have to kind of say, at what cost does it make sense to actually bring like a social media person in, a paid advertising manager, a content writer, or does it still make sense to outsource those very specific things, and your team internally is a manager, probably a designer, that really knows your assets and is giving assets to a social team, an advertising team, bringing in a paid media manager, for example, somebody that's an expert at paid social, paid per pay-per-click, hiring them full-time is going to cost a significant amount of money. They don't need to be full-time.
You need to be doing a lot of revenue.
You need to be really making that, like that's your business, right? So I think, and again, like social as well, like you want to have a videographer on staff, you're going to like, to do social the right way is not, you're not just flying by the seat of your pants anymore. So again, it's like, I think outsource those specific things quite a bit, but somebody in-house managing and somebody in-house designing are typically the first hires that we would see and recommend.
Could you do a lot of that with virtual assistants?
Yeah. You can. I would say virtual assistants would be, or virtual is when you're already on the admin side, yes. When you're on the marketing side, that's something you're leveraging kind of piecemeal, I think, scalability-wise. In-house, when I say in-house, they don't have to be in-house per se, but I wouldn't necessarily have like a virtual assistant that's like just managing, like that's your stuff, and they're going to see budgets, and like I kind of like having that on staff.
And I would say most virtual assistants, I'm generalizing, and like overseas VAs, right?
Yeah.
They're very good at repetitive tasks. They're
Yes.
not very good at creative thinking,
Yes.
like on the marketing
Yeah,
side of things,
right.
or analyzing and interpreting data
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So like, I think you need somebody who's more of a strategic thinker in-house, right, to help out with that. But then the actual deployment or the cutting up videos or something along those lines, they can
That's
help
more, yes. And the person I'm talking about is somewhere between an intern and like a VP level, right? Somebody in between. They don't need to be director level, like, but they're not an intern.
Yep.
They got to know enough about a couple years of business under their belt. Where we see VAs a lot would be in like nurturing a top of the funnel lead, qualifying somebody, getting them into the CRM, assigning them out to an agent or a salesperson, or on the back end when the salesperson's got the deal to the closing table, they got the signature, now we got to go through the process of getting the deal to the, getting the keys in hand or whatever. They're more of a transaction manager.
Yeah, transaction.
A lot of VA in that world. So top of the funnel, later in the funnel, but that middle part is where you're creative and where your salespeople are, that's typically not an outsourced piece.
Let's talk about, I'd love to understand what your outlook is for the next 24 to 36 months in this digital marketing space, right? Like, what are you seeing from where are the opportunities? Where are the underutilized opportunities, right? Where can you get the biggest bang for your buck on marketing dollars? How do you see AI coming in? How do you see virtual assistants? Do you see some of this stuff, some of these roles being automated? Like, give me some feedback on what you see over the next 36 months as an expert in the space.
So I mean, look, as trite as it sounds or cliched, AI is where it is. AI is happening. The way we're looking at it is AI shouldn't be taking over your role, but the people that are using AI to do more are going to be the ones that are going to succeed.
I like that.
The fact that I was working on a website thing yesterday. I was like, I can't make this show right on mobile. I hit ChatGPT. I was like, here's my problem. And instead of going through 10 articles and videos on YouTube to find like one setting that I can't figure out in WordPress, 30 seconds. I'm more productive because of that, right? Even down to like, I've got a whole spreadsheet of data and I'm trying to figure out what formula would do this? Boom, 30 seconds. Again, I'm saving myself an hour or more of time. And it's the same kind of thing of like, train a GPT on your business, your brand, and how to write press releases for your company, for example. Hit go, tell it what you want to do, hit go. you're not publishing that, but it's getting you 80%, it's getting you to the starting line a lot faster than it would be. And I'm an old school copy guy, right? I need 10 headlines for my, or subject lines for my email going out to this audience from my database. Go. 30 seconds later, I've got ideas that now I can start. Just gets my creative juices going a little bit. So even just that perspective, you go from one person now can be like 3 people would have been even a year ago.
I love that.
Data analysis as well, especially in the investing world. It's like, here's all the information I have on these 10 properties. I've got them in a spreadsheet. I can feed that into a GPT, say, analyze this for me. What am I missing? Where are the holes here? Where are the real opportunities? At least to like have an assistant kind of there. Or just the other day, I was doing some competitive analysis for a real estate brokerage client. I looked at 10 different competitors. I took the top 1,000 keywords that I could find on those competitors, put those into a spreadsheet, dumped them into a GPT, and had it categorize the types of keywords that all of these companies are ranking for. Then we can go back and say, well, what content is ranking against those keywords? And then you can step back and say, 30 minutes of my time to compile the data, another 20 minutes of working with the GPT, and now what it would have taken me 2 days of work, even again,
every
a year
bit
ago,
of it, man. Yeah.
I can go, here's our content strategy based on real competitive analysis, like, right? And I could have done it before, but it would have taken forever. And so when I say AI, like that's how I'm looking at AI. That's how we're telling our clients to look at AI. The people that are using it and doing it in that, it's not, again, we're not saying like it's going to take over everything just yet, but certain things for sure. But it's how do you, 1 + 1 = like 5 with what you can do. And so if you have an organization that actually has, potentially thousands of people in a database and thousands of people coming to their website on a daily basis and engaging in social media, we help people build infrastructure to put all that data into a place like a data warehouse where then the AI can then go in there and chew on all of that. And who knows what we can find. And if you think about it, let's coming back to the database conversation. I've got a property. I think it's a great opportunity. Who in my database already would match that opportunity? Well, the AI can start to look for those. It's like, these are the 5 people that typically have invested in this type of opportunity versus, no, these are your land guys. These are your residential fix and flips. These are your commercial developers, right? And so rather than you like, scrolling through a spreadsheet or CRM, let the system tell you, right? And then at scale, it's already writing the email and queuing it up and getting all of that done too, right?
It's brilliant, man.
So,
it's really exciting stuff
of
seeing where it's going to go. And I love the prospect because I think people hear AI and they're either in an old school mindset where they're like, I don't like technology, or they're concerned for their role. They're threatened. Yeah. And I think, the way that you framed it is, it's not replacing a role, it's maximizing that role, and they're doing way more, 3 times as much more as what they could do without AI if it's being used properly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, man. So I'll tell you what, ton of great insights. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, connect with you, potentially, work with you guys?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Rivers Pearce. I have a very unique name. It's the same everywhere.
Cool name, by the way.
Thank you. You can also email me, rivers@parcelstrategic.com. You can go to parcelstrategic.com. That'd probably be the best way to find me.
Cool, man. Yeah, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes, too, of the podcast. But Rivers, appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks
for all the great insights.
Love to do it again sometime.
For sure.
Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you being here on the Legacy Podcast. Hopefully you got a ton of great value out of our conversation with Rivers. Make sure you're following him. Make sure you're connected with him. We'll put his contact information in the show notes. And if you want to connect further with us, make sure that you connect with us on all different social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and you can also check out our website at legacywealthholdings.com. Until next week, see you guys on the Legacy Podcast.